Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we're going to be continuing our series on Is the Spirit for You? This time focusing on Vengeance as a Burning Plague. The setup is going to be one presence that is going to be destroyed, two presence on your starting board, one in a land with Blight, one in a wetland without Dahan. The playstyle states, not so powerful early, but can be a late game juggernaut, especially if things are going badly. Blight adds to its damage, and its presence being destroyed adds disease. It may even want to engineer these situations, which can make other spirits nervous. It faces a variety of trade offs, which it need to focus on, and whether to use disease to stop builds versus keeping it on the board for fear or power use. It is a high complexity spirit, and the summary of power states it is a high offense, low control, high fear, middle defense, and very little utility. Vengeance is a disease user. Now, I think the fear, defense, and control should be a little bit higher, even utility, just because it does add disease via the special rule and via fetid breath. So I think utility should also be higher, but it definitely generates a lot of offense. Flipping the spirit board over and looking at the special rules, Vengeance is going to have three special rules. The first one says, whenever disease would prevent a build on your board with presence, or on a board with your presence, you may let that build happen, removing no disease. If you do, one fear. This special rule allows Vengeance to keep disease around such that you can utilize your left innate, your skip, or plague bearers. Lingering Pestilence, it says when your presence is destroyed by anything except a spirit action, add a disease where each destroyed presence was. That means those bad blight effects, those bad events that are destroying your presence, it's going to add disease whenever those come up. And your actions treat blight on the island as also being badlands. So the more blight you have, the more damage you'll be able to do in those blighted lands. And that's kind of on theme with Vengeance. You're taking revenge on the invaders. They're blighting the land, and that's making your powers stronger. Looking at your growth options, you're a 0-2-1, which means you're not placing presence on Reclaim. You have a double presence option, and a presence placement option that also comes with a power card and an energy. This is a very standard growth style. Your tracks end at 4-4, and you have a animal on top track and a fire on bottom track. So Vengeance's tracks are one of the reasons why the spirit is a little bit on the weaker power level, and that's just because getting to this 3 plays is an eternity. You have to jump through two 2-play spots to finally get to this 3. In addition, this other dead spot here on with that lower fire. Okay, looking at your left innate, this is going to be a damage ability that is going to target a land with disease, and it's going to scale with the number of disease in that land. So first threshold, 1 damage per disease. Second threshold, an additional 1 damage per disease. And this last threshold that I very rarely see, an additional +1 damage per disease. Then you gain a bunch of fear, and then you remove a disease. Pretty much it's just these first 2 thresholds that really matter. And the reason is because this last threshold will require 4 plays as well as that top animal, which is just not really realistic. The red innate has to target a land with buildings. It's a slow power, 0 range. You can increase the range to 1 if you have 3 air. It's unlikely, but it does come up sometimes. And you can either do 1 damage plus 2 damage, so this would be 3 damage in the land, or plus 3 damage, that would be 6 damage. And once again, these are additive, so it'd be 1 plus 2 plus 3. The total would be 6 damage, and then obviously if the land is blighted, it would increase that damage by +1 per blight. Vengeance has 4 power cards. Fetid Breath, this is 1 fear, add a disease. This is probably her weakest card. I'm not a big Vengeance player, but 2 energy for a single disease is pretty bad. Plague Bearers, it's a 1 energy slow, fire, water, animal. 2 range, targeting a land with disease. 1 fear if invaders are present. And then for each disease, you may push up to 2 explorers, towns, or Dahan. And then each piece that's being pushed may carry up to 1 disease. Strike low with sudden fevers. It's a 2 energy fast, fire, air, earth, animal. 1 range, targeting a land with disease. 1 fear, skip all ravage actions in target land. Very, very powerful card. And finally, Fiery Vengeance. It's a 0 cost fast sun fire. Target any spirit. Cost to use. Target spirit removes one of their destroyed presence from the game. 1 fear and 1 damage in one of target spirit's lands. And since this is your power, if you're targeting another spirit and there's a blight in that spirit's land, you'll get +1 damage. So, is Vengeance for you? So, Vengeance is a high offensive spirit. You're going to be taking a lot of blight, and the more blight you take, the more badlands you can gain. In addition, the more disease you can put on the board. So, you're going to be going blighted most of your games, because if you're not going blighted, then there's going to be less badlands, which means you're going to be doing less damage. Vengeance is weird in that it's this pseudo control tank spirit. It doesn't seem like that at first, but really you're going to let those lands pile up with invaders, and then you're going to skip those lands with your disease, and then eventually you're going to whittle it down with that left innate. And a good example would be like if you had something that looked like, let's say you had 2 disease here, explorers. It looks like this, right? And your mountain is ravaging here. What you would do is you would play Plague Bearers so that this would trigger as this land builds. You then would push everything out over here, piling up your disease, and then you'd use that critical mass of disease with that left innate to whittle down that C2. Vengeance has major builds, minor builds. It's a very unique spirit. It has a very high skill threshold. It's definitely on the weaker end compared to most other spirits. You really got to put a lot of work in to maximize the value, and if things go wrong with the spirit, they can go wrong very quickly. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I will see you guys in the next video.